Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to start. Lori says we're ready. You heard her squeal, so. My pleasure to introduce our introduction to the speaker. I want to introduce to you our own Paulding County boy, probate juvenile judge Michael Workamp. I told him back when he was a senior in high school in government class that someday I wanted to be sitting front and center when he was inducted as the president or Supreme Court or something like that, because I was there in the beginning.
Thank you, Jan. So I have the pleasure tonight of introducing Justice Judy French. And I sort of lobbied for this job about 30 minutes before, 30 minutes before this. So Justice French became a justice of the Supreme Court of Ohio in January 2013 and was elected to her first full term in 2014. She has traveled throughout Ohio visiting all 88 counties many times. So she is on her fifth time going to, think about that, 88 times 5. She's almost done with her fifth tour through. And so her fourth tour through Paulding was last October when she visited me in my office. And we just chatted for 30 minutes. It was amazing, and it was great. Okay, I'll never get through this if I don't keep going, right? So, with a history of public service and wide-ranging legal experience, a passion for equal justice, and a special interest in civic education, Justice French is committed to serving as a resource for the people of Ohio. For more than 2 decades, Justice French has dedicated her career to public service. In that time, she has served as a lawyer for a state agency, an assistant attorney general, counsel to the governor, and finally as a judge. In 1993, she joined the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency as deputy director of legal affairs. From 97 to 02, she worked for Attorney General Betty Montgomery as an assistant attorney general and later as chief counsel. From 02 to 04, Justice French served as chief legal counsel to Governor Bob Taft. In that role, she served as the chair of the Sex Offender Registration and Notification Task Force, which made recommendations to the legislature for making Ohio's sex offender laws more effective. In 04, Justice French was elected as a judge of the 10th District Court of Appeals, which hears appeals from the Franklin County courts and state administrative agencies. While a judge on the Court of Appeals for 8 years, she authored more than 800 legal opinions. In December of 2012, Governor John Kasich appointed Justice French to fill a vacancy on the Supreme Court of Ohio. She became the 155th Justice of the Ohio Supreme Court on January 1st, 2013. And in 2015, United States Supreme Court Justice John Roberts approved her to serve as the Federal Appellate Rules Committee. And I'll just say one other thing, and that is that, I've been in my job for 3.5 years as a judge, and I've learned sometimes the hard way that one of the most important characteristics that you have to have as a judge is humility. And Justice French has that, and many more attributes as well. So I give you Justice French.
Thanks, Michael. No matter what you achieve, you're still going to be that boy from the high school. Well, good evening, everybody. It's great to be back in Paulding County. Thank you all for having me tonight and for gathering. It's good to just be with other people, isn't it? Can you believe it really has been almost 8 years now since I've been on the Ohio Supreme Court, and in that time I have cast just thousands and thousands of votes, and no matter how long I'm there and no matter how many votes I cast, I will not forget that you helped put me there, that you and many conservatives around the state are why I got to the Ohio Supreme Court and why I'm going to stay there in 2020. Sometimes I do get reminded of just how long I've been there. I was at a Lincoln dinner down in Scioto County. This was last year before the pandemic, and it was one of those nights. It was just really upbeat and fun, and several hundred people there. I was having a good time, and I walked by an older gentleman, and he reached out his hands to me, and he stopped me, and he looked me right in the eye. He had both of my hands in his, and he looked me right in the eye, and he said, "Boy, this job has really aged you." What do you say? say to that? I think it was something profound like, okay. But I have to tell you, I don't feel aged. I don't feel aged. I feel energized. As I move around the state, especially in 2020, there is so much enthusiasm out there. There's so much energy. Everybody's being creative about how to get the vote out and really get those names out for your Supreme Court justices. I have to tell you, though, that the races are going to be negative. Our opponents, my opponent, Sharon Kennedy's opponent, just this week declined to sign a clean campaign pledge. And my opponent put out a letter on Twitter, of all things, put out a letter that said one of the reasons why she declined to do that was that I had described myself as a conservative. Now, to be clear, I describe myself and do describe myself as a judicial conservative, somebody who stays within the lines, somebody who understands my role, and that is what she's going to criticize me for. So hold on tight. It's going to be a bumpy ride, I think. Sometimes I find myself, especially when faced with something like that, to kind of wish for the good old days. I'm not sure exactly what good old days I mean, but something that feels less like it does today. And I think, though, we have to remember that even our founders were not particularly kind to one another. So I looked up some of their quotes, and I can tell you that they were not without sin when it comes to the nastiness front. Thomas Jefferson once wrote to James Madison about Patrick Henry, "What we have to do, I think, is devoutly to pray for his death." Thomas Paine once wrote to George Washington and said, "And as to you, sir, treacherous in private friendship and hypocrite in public life, the world will be puzzled to decide whether you have abandoned good principles or whether you ever had any." William Cobbett, a Federalist writer at the time, returned the favor and wrote of Thomas Paine, "How Tom gets a living now, or in what brothel he inhabits, I know not. Like Judas, he will be remembered by posterity. Men will learn to express all that is base, malignant, treacherous, unnatural, and blasphemous by the single monosyllable Paine." So you likely know where I'm going with this. Our founders did not have Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, but they did have some pretty wicked tongues when they wanted to. So I do want more diplomacy and I want less outrage, but more than anything, I just want free, uninhibited speech. There's one image that is going to stay with me from 2020, and it is the image of Nancy Pelosi ripping up that speech. Do you remember? That, to me, it just epitomizes that message of stop talking, we aren't listening, don't say anymore. And so I think we have to struggle just a little bit with what is it that we're going to do. And I think the answer is, well, we have to keep talking. We have to get the truth out. I think that sometimes people forget, particularly on the other side, that the whole purpose of free speech is to allow the truth to emerge. Sometimes it's going to be painful. Sometimes it's going to take a long time. But that's the American way to get the truth out there. So we have to continue to speak. We have to continue to advocate for causes we believe in, and we must vote. There's something that I'm afraid of in 2020 with so much passion out there, and it's the vote for your judges. The people who day in and day out administer justice following the Constitution. And I'm a very visual person, and so when I think about the judiciary, for me, just like your old courthouse on the square, that's what I think of. That beautiful old courthouse sitting at the center of the community, representing, I think, a time when it really was the center of the community. And that may not be true anymore, but I can assure you that the people who work within that courthouse absolutely are some of the best people who work to make your community work for everyone. So I just wanted to recognize the two judges that we have here in attendance tonight. You've already heard from Michael, and being a probate and juvenile judge is not an easy thing. He has to represent really the bookends of life. He's representing, or he's having to deal with dead people, but also those juveniles who come before him who may be just starting out their lives. So you have to straddle between the work that celebrates and the work that punishes. That is not an easy job. Thank you for your service. I also want to acknowledge a retired judge in our presence, and that's Mel Kemmer, who's here with us from Miami County Municipal Court. You know, municipal court is the people's court. The speed is fast, the volume is high. I once had to go into municipal court to do an argument. I couldn't wait to get out of there. So thank you for your service to the state of Ohio. So I bet when voters were thinking about, and I bet you're some of them, when you were thinking about who to vote for in 2016, you were thinking maybe about the United States Supreme Court. You were thinking about who will make the appointments to the United States Supreme Court, and our president has gotten 2 appointments with Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch. Well, it's not only about the Supreme Court. We have all of those other federal judges at the district court, which is the trial court level, and then the Court of Appeals level, which is right below the United States Supreme Court. At just that mid-level, there are 179 judges. President Trump has appointed about 1/3 of them already. If you add up all of the appointments that he's made, it's over 200. That is amazing, and it's record-setting. He's appointed more than any other president to date at this point in his tenure. You've probably heard about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the one that's out in California that's known for being liberal. It's even up now. It is no longer the liberal court around the United States. So as a Supreme Court justice, particularly as a judicial conservative, I pay attention to what the federal courts do, because if we have one of their questions in front of us, it's important for me to follow precedent. But here in Ohio, you get to decide. You get to decide your judges, who your judges are. That is the vote that is so critically important in 2020. And I travel all around Ohio, as Michael said, and I talked to a lot of conservative voters. And for the longest time, in fact, all of 2019, the question I got more than any other, the question I used to get most is, are you tall enough to be a judge? People are mean sometimes, just so you know. But the question that I got over and over in 2019 was, what happened in 2018? If you remember, in the November election in 2018, all of the executive offices went Republican, but the 2 Supreme Court candidates went Democrat. And it is not because the Democrats did something different or did something correct. It's that the Republicans took our eye off the ball, that the Republican voters didn't know who the Republican judicial candidates were for the Ohio Supreme Court. So the question then now, in just these remaining weeks before the election, and with so much early voting, it's coming up really quickly, the question is, what will you do to keep the Ohio Supreme Court conservative? Before the 2018 election, we had 7-0 Republicans on the court. Now it's 5-2. We'll do the math. If we've got 7 justices, 2 Democrats now, we've got 2 seats up this year. This is for the majority. And I'll tell you somebody who's really focused on the Ohio Supreme Court, and that's Eric Holder. Now, the Eric Holder that was the Attorney General for Barack Obama, he created the National Democratic Redistricting Committee. So you've all, I hope, filled out your census forms. I'm a genealogist. Somebody's going to be looking for you in the future. You have to fill that out. And when we get that census data, we are likely to lose 1 member of Congress. And what that means for Ohio is that all of those lines will have to be redrawn. And when they're redrawn by our legislator, you've got your wonderful legislators here, it's their job to redraw those lines. But the challenge is going to come to the Ohio Supreme Court. And what Eric Holder wants to do, backed by Barack Obama and George Soros, this is all very public, they want more Democrats elected. And so if they can't control the legislatures, guess what they want to control? The state Supreme Courts. And they have been successful in Pennsylvania and North Carolina to flip seats on the state Supreme Courts. Now, they tried in Wisconsin, and a conservative group came in behind them and pushed them back, and the conservative was able to win. So we've known for a while now, Justice Kennedy and I have known for a while now, that we've got targets on our backs. We know that we are one of 10 targeted states, and frankly, in the next week or two, I am just waiting for that shoe to fall, to have Eric Holder or George Soros or any of the Act Blue organizations to come in and support our opponents. Even with all of that, I'm betting on you. I'm betting on you, I am betting on me, I am betting on our hard work, but I do need your help. You know that when I get to the ballot, or when you get to the ballot, you will not have an R or a D next to your judges' names for both justices and judges. So it becomes critically important for you to know our names and for you to be able to tell others. There's a big drop-off. About 20% of the voters are going to just skip over us. So if you tell someone, you tell a family member, a colleague, an employee, who to vote for, you may be turning a non-voter into a positive voter for the Ohio Supreme Court. Now, I know it can be hard to remember names. Judge Judy works for me, if that works for you. But there's another easier way, and that's KFC. Now, I can't endorse Justice Kennedy, but I can help you remember who your endorsed candidates are for the Ohio Supreme Court. Kennedy, French for the court. Kennedy, French, conservative. Now, during the Lincoln dinner season, I would carry an empty bucket of KFC around with me just to get that visual. But can you remember that? So when people say, and you know they're going to ask you, who do I vote for? They're not going to have to necessarily drive by your house to see whose yard signs you've got out there. You can tell them, all you have to remember is KFC. Yeah, well, that's too hard. Well, that's okay. You can tell them Kennedy French, but it's an easier way to say KFC. Yep, you got it. Whatever you do, don't sit this out. This is about keeping the Ohio Supreme Court conservative. My opponent is a former Secretary of State. She is a self-described progressive. She is going to criticize me for being a conservative. That draws the line about what this race is really all about. So whatever you do, don't sit out 2020 in the Supreme Court races. Remember what President Reagan told us. Let us be sure that those who come after will say of us in our time that in our time we did everything that could be done. We finished the race, we kept them free, we kept the faith. So keep the faith, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is going to be an amazing election in the state of Ohio. And with your help, we are going to keep the Ohio Supreme Court conservative. It's really been my honor to be with you tonight. God bless. Thank you, Albert.
Thank you so much, Justice Kennedy. That was awesome. Oh, Justice French. I'm sorry. Well, Kennedy, French, for the course. KFC. You started me off. There you go. All right. Next is Gina and Bob Campbell, who are our state central committee members. And Gina, that was just a beautiful song. You did such a wonderful job. Thank you again. What I need to say, thank you, Mary Beth, for giving me this idea.
Oh, so ornery. She is so ornery. Hi, I'm Gina Campbell. This is my husband, Bob Campbell. We are blessed to be the man and woman on the State Central and Executive Committee for District 1. And it was purely by God that both of us made that role. So we ran back in 2016, and then we ran uncontested by the grace of God again. So it's just been an amazing journey. So both of us are United States Army veterans. We live in Findlay, Ohio. Thank you. And we raise our kids. They all went to Van Buren. We've got the baby at home right now. So he's 15. So, and one of the big things that we do in this role is we try to make sure that we work directly with every chair we have 11 counties in our district. So we are pretty familiar with Rob McCauley, because we've seen him out in every county. That's through our district. And we let everybody on Northeast Ohio know that the real, true conservative Christians are on the Northwest side, and he is our prime example of what we look for in a politician. So there you understand we're all on the same page, because there's a difference, where you come from. But we do go and we have a meeting, about 4 meetings a year. We actually just drove up from Columbus. We had our first meeting since COVID. And to actually be able to meet in person and discuss what's happening. We cannot allow the big topic, and Judy, we saw her earlier saying, so she spoke there as well. We're in the crunch time, and we really need to make sure everybody understands who our judges are that they need to vote for, because she is 100% right. We've done a lot of searching on how did we lose the last 2. And we come up with, people just didn't know. They were looking for the R or the D. Because they're the way at the bottom, and nobody is really, they're thinking, oh, the judge, everything will have an R and a D. Just go down the ticket. They don't. So it's, as we're handing stuff out, we're working in the Hancock County GOP office, handing out Trump stuff, taking donations and all that good stuff. And making sure people are registered, because sometimes they come in and they grab a sign. We're like, are you registered? So that's the other thing, we're like trying to register them. Also, we're handing in the literature for the justices. Like, here is who you need to be voting for. There will not, and we notify them, there will not be an R or D. And they're like, really? I didn't know that, thank you. They're all shocked, everybody.
And if you can get a sign in your yard. Because there's no better reminder from a grassroots. People driving by your house will read those signs and they'll know. And when they see the names, they'll remember. Because there's some way you got to do it. You got to remind them who the candidates are. Because somehow the Democrats knew, and we know they're not that smart. So anything you can do small to remind people,
So that was the number one thing that we're focused on right now. We have a surplus as far as funds for this Republican Party at the state level. It's $300+ million so far. Jane Timken, our chairman, your chairman, is working very closely with our president. In fact, he kind of handpicked her. So there was a little, at that time. So she's doing a phenomenal job working directly with the Trump campaign. And also, Trump will be in Swanton, Toledo. There, don't forget, on Monday. And I think it's on your website where you can get the tickets or so forth. You'll be working it, won't you, Lori? So, and if they need more volunteers, should they contact you then, or?
I think they would have Sarah Reynolds.
Okay. And if you need her number, if you do want to volunteer, just go directly to Lori. We discussed that as well. The other thing too is there are some things that are coming around, and one of them is the House Bill 606, which there was passed by the Governor DeWine, which is for making sure that the essential workers that work during this time cannot be sued because of COVID, and especially if you're someone in the medical field. So that was one of the things discussed as well. And just besides that, Trump was what they were pushing. You can go door to door, make phone calls, do something, work and help take donations for the Trump merchandise. And the other big thing, it's huge this year, we're to get the word out about Kennedy and French. We cannot lose them, as some of you retired judges here know. We cannot lose 2 more seats. It will swing the pendulum this time all the way to the left. It is crucial. So that's all we have to say.
I think I should learn sign language while I'm standing here. That way I can do something. But that'd work out. First of all, thank you for what you all do. Gratitude. Because it's a team effort. We notice there's a lot of enthusiasm. Coming here, seeing all the signs. And it's a great sign. It's a testament to what the president has done. He made promises, he kept promises, and now we are all reaping the benefits, and will continue to do so. And as long as we keep him in office. And so that's all I have to say. So thanks a lot.
All right. Clint just showed me some pretty awesome, well, it's not, I'm sorry. It's some news that came over the wires. Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. Friday, today. So, our president could have a third. So, that's the news. Yeah. Yeah. I'm like almost speechless now, and that doesn't happen very often. All right. Our next speaker, I just met her, but we've talked a long time. Long time. And Mary Beth Kemmer is our lady president of the Ohio Republican Women. And she's working so hard to get the Republican women enthusiastic and join to clubs and helping the Republican Party here in Ohio. Thank you so much, Mary Beth.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I've already had such a great time, and I have to tell you, my husband came with me today, and I was really glad about that. But I wanted to tell you a real quick story. She told me I had an hour, so I got my jokes ready for you. But he was sworn in. We had been married maybe 35 years, something like that. So I asked him. I said, "So what if I show up in your court?" And I'm thinking he's going to say something very, really noble, like, "Well, they would send you to another court. It's not ethical for you to be in my court, And I thought maybe he'd say that, or maybe he would say something like, "Well, honey, I could never send you to jail." That's what I thought. He looks me straight in the eye and goes, "Bring your toothbrush." Yeah. Maybe 35 years is too long. We just celebrated our 51st, and Justice Kennedy came and repeated our vows with us. So thank you. Well, I'm here mostly to tell you about OFRW, Ohio Federation of Republican Women, and NFRW, National Federation of Republican Women. And I talk about this because, for me, it has been such an eye-opening thing that even though I'm a loud person, I know that I'm loud. My voice is only one little voice in the darkness. And for me, these groups getting together with these women gives us power and a voice that we would not have otherwise. And so I'm always fighting for us to stay together. We have our differences. There are people that disagree with me periodically, even my husband. It's hard to believe, I know, but yeah. So, but we do have our disagreements, but we live for Republican ideals: small government, low taxes, lower regulations. Those are our Republican ideals. Certainly, we celebrate life and are against any kind of choice. But we celebrate those things, but we can't celebrate those things off in a corner by ourselves. We have to be together. So the OFRW and the NFRW are groups that came together to help get that megaphone effect out there. They also help, I know we helped one club that was having a little trouble with the money. Some checks got lost, so we sent in, actually me, I was the treasurer at the time. Yeah. But I'm not the popular person sometimes when you're the auditor. So, but the other one, we had one club where the people came in one night. They'd never seen these people before, and they got themselves elected officers of the club. And so we sent in some legal advice and help from the national came in and helped them. But so I think of us also not only as our voice, but also the insurance policy. If you need help getting members, if you need help saying, well, I need programs. What will we talk about? Actually, my club, the biggest program we had was one on Common Core. And the second biggest was one on the Second Amendment. So it was really, we can help you find those kinds of things. And we hope that you will join and you will stay. So we can have the voice so that you can have the insurance policy kind of thing, so that you can also hear from other people like you. It is so nice, isn't it, when you go to some place and you go, look, isn't red the best color? And everybody agrees, instead of you go in and go, red's the best color, and they go, really? You want to sort of get some reinforcement that you're not thinking the wrong thing. So I think that has helped. So that's my little spiel about that part. So I hope you will all stay in OFRW, join OFRW, NFRW. Well, because I still need the job too, but what I really wanted to talk to you about real quick, and I'm trying to keep it to five minutes, right? Okay. So we're all Republicans in this room, and we have a history. The party was formed because we didn't think the Whigs were doing enough to abolish slavery. I mean, that's what we are for, and yet the Democrats will tell you, and their website will tell you, they're the party of freedom. I don't know how that works in their eyes, but somehow it does. So we elected this guy, Trump, because he was the guy we thought was going to be just, the businessman that goes in there and does the Republican ideals. So I hear people come out and go, well, I like Trump, but he tweets. Well, here's what I want you to do. Quit saying but. All we got to say is, I like Trump. I hired a guy to do a job, and by God, that guy's doing the job, isn't he? I mean, he's doing the job. So you tell me, you agree with anybody all the time? I mean, except for us. I mean, yeah, but no, there is not a person on this earth that you're going to do that with. So stop saying but. He is the president. Let me just show you this. After 18 months, this is the list of the Trump accomplishments. This is the list. 18 months. No Democrats for him. A lot of Republicans are against him. He did this by himself almost. And so you tell me what those other yahoos been doing all this time. I mean, look at some of those guys been there for 50 years. They have not done this in 50 years. Trump did it in 18 months. So I want to tell you tonight, that's my big spiel. I want you to work hard. I want you to get out there and make phone calls, knock on doors, and no buts. And don't be afraid. I had a Marine tell me the other day, he said, I'm so embarrassed. You told me that in Clark County people were afraid to put bumper stickers on their car. They were afraid to put signs in their yard for fear somebody was going to vandalize it. And he said, we're Americans. We have the right to speak. And he said, I'm a Marine. We stand up. So stand up. We can stand up and say, okay, you like Biden, that's your right. Fine. I mean, I don't understand it, but, okay. I like Trump, and here's why. Promises made, promises kept. So I'm hoping that you get out and vote for Trump, and you get out and work for Trump, and don't be afraid to tell people, I'm a Trump person, and I believe this guy is right. And then also, by the way, OFRW and NFRW, stay in the fold with us. Thank you all for having me tonight. I do have an hour. No. Oh. No. I got dad jokes. I could tell one. Go ahead. I caught my husband looking at the orange juice can, and he was staring at it, and I said, what are you doing, honey? He says, it said concentrate.
Well, before I introduce our next speaker, I just have a few things that I can say in here that I can't say in the office. So So make sure you tell your friends who to vote for Supreme Court Justice, because when those people come in to vote, I can't tell them who the Republicans are. So make sure they know before they get there, because we have 1,700 absentee applications in the office already. It'll go out on October the 6th, so make sure you have your campaigning done by then. Headquarters is open tomorrow from 10 to 2. If you want to go up and get some more signs or hats or anything, or volunteer. And registration closes October the 5th. So if you know anyone that needs to register, they can go online to voteohio.gov. They can also go there and register for an absentee application, and we will mail it to them. They can also register to be poll workers. We need 74 poll workers for Election Day. Well, we have about 150 that have signed up now, but now the cards are coming back and they're not going to work. Or 30 of those do not have an affiliation. So if you know anybody that wants to be a poll worker, please let me know. So now, going on with the program, I think Lori just flip-flopped them because I get to introduce Craig Riedel, our state representative.
Well, hello, everybody. All right. Want to get up and do some jumping jacks? Yeah. I want to start out first by just acknowledging Tony and Nancy Berkeley. And I want you all to know that I consider Tony to be a first-class gentleman. And he and his wife have been very gracious to me over the last several years. And he did it again this evening. So I walked in the room, and Tony and I met eyes, and we went right towards each other. And a true gentleman. So thank you, Tony. All right, so here we are. It's a Friday night. We're 46 days, I think 46 days, 45, 46 days till Election Day. You hear it over and over. Most likely the most important election in our lifetime for many reasons. The presidential election, obviously. Here in Ohio, we have to re-elect KFC. We have to re-elect KFC. And we're going to chant that at the end, by the way, KFC. Here locally, Clint Vance is running for county commissioner. We got to get Clint elected. He's going to do a great job. I really like Clint. Roy Falkenstein's on the ballot for re-election. We got to get Roy re-elected, so that's very important. I think those are the two local elections that are contested, right? But there's a lot happening. There's a lot happening. On the state level, you probably have followed along. We've had a few issues down at the State House, particularly in the House of Representatives. We had our former speaker was indicted, and now we have a new speaker. And I just want to talk about Bob Cupp for a moment. Bob, and I reckon some of you here have already know Bob. He is a terrific man, and more than anything, what we needed in the House of Representatives is we needed a big dose of humility. And with Bob Cupp, we got a man with a very humble spirit. In my short 4 years, this is my fourth speaker already, and which is very unusual. And Bob's style of leadership is going to be, or is, much different than the previous speakers, whereas prior it was more of a top-down, authoritative approach from the speakership. Bob is one who is very inclusive, and it's more of a bottom-up. And I think what you're going to see is you're going to see people just blossom down there, because representatives that maybe felt the thumb was on them, I think they feel like the reins are loose now, and it's really going to benefit Ohio. Because I can tell you there are some really, really bright people down there that I get to work with. And so Bob Cupp is going to do a terrific job. He is going to do a terrific job. As a matter of fact, this past week I've been crisscrossing the state with Bob, because when all this went down with the previous speaker, the FBI came in and the FBI froze all of Larry Householder's money. And Larry Householder, basically, he did all the fundraising for the house, and he was putting most of that money into his own personal account, his campaign account, I should say. But that money got froze. So the end of July, the Republican House caucus was essentially broke. It's literally broke. And we were looking at, November 3rd, just maybe 2 months away. So we're fundraising like crazy. As I mentioned, I've been crossing the state with Speaker Cup. We had a terrific week this week. We fundraised about $700,000 just this week alone. We need to, the goal we've set is $3 million at a minimum to run successful races. There's 99 state reps. We have 79 races. The Republicans have 79 candidates out there. There's some districts that you just don't field a candidate because you know what your chances are very slim, but we have 79 candidates. Currently we have 61 representatives, so we have a supermajority. It's very important that we maintain that supermajority. And more importantly, though, we have to hang on to the majority, which I am extremely confident we're going to do that. So we're working hard. We do have some great candidates out there, and we're on the right path. The House of Representatives is on the right path. We have a leader who has incredible integrity, and I truly really respect Bob Cupp. So we'll just keep plowing ahead here. So the KFC, with Judy and Sharon, it is, Judy talked about the congressional the congressional maps and how this can impact our country for many, many years. And the Democrats, as Judy mentioned, their approach is that they want to buy the courts. They want to take control of the courts. So it is so important, particularly in this part of Ohio, where we are so conservative up this way. We have to offset the other party where they're more strong. Particularly, I'm talking about I-71, that corridor. If we come out, and everybody, and I mean, we need you to talk to your friends, your relatives. We have to come out to vote. We have to come out to vote for President Trump. We have to come out and vote for Judy French and Sharon Kennedy. So I know we're up to it. That's our challenge, and that's my challenge to all of you is to roust up that enthusiasm with your friends. What I promise you all is I'm going to continue to work my tail off for you. I want you all to know how appreciative I am of your support. I am truly honored to be your representative, and I will continue to work very, very hard for all of you. And so one more time here, KFC, right? So let's get KFC, 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 KFC. All right. So hey, we live in the greatest country in the world. We live in the greatest part of Ohio. God bless Northwest Ohio. God bless our country. Thank you. I'll clean her up.
That way I don't have to waste another one. I can just hand this to Rob.
That's because I'm very frugal, very frugal.
Our final speaker of the evening is our state senator, and people are asking why his signs aren't at headquarters. That's because he's lucky. He's not on the ballot this year. So it will be 2 years before his name is on the ballot again, but let's hear it for our state senator, Rob McCauley.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to join you tonight, and I'll echo Craig's comments. It's good to see Tony Berkeley. Tony and I sat right next to each other on the floor of the House in my first 2 years there, and so you could say everything that I learned it from him, Unless it's something bad, then I learned it from somebody else, I suppose. He was great. He was somebody who was always very willing to give up his time and his efforts to make sure that a young legislator like myself knew what we were doing, which is sometimes hard to fake when you're a freshman legislator. So, but it was good. It's great to see Tony. I would say this, start about this. We heard the news earlier, obviously, of the passing of Justice Ginsburg. I would say this. I think we all should be thankful for the service that people give to this country, even if it is somebody who we disagree with. She gave the better part of her life to the United States in service to her country, and I think it's important to keep that in mind because politics has become so divisive, and we're entering a stage where we're getting into the ninth inning, the final hour, whatever it may be, of our presidential race. And this took on an entirely different tone as a result of the news tonight. And so I would hope that we as Republicans can maintain a sense of grace and humility, recognizing the service that Justice Ginsburg gave to this country, but also at the same time understanding the opportunity that may be there for the court. It's never good news, I suppose, when somebody dies, but at the same time, we also have to understand how this is going to play out in the race that's ahead of us. When we elected Donald Trump in 2016, part of the big reason we elected him was because the court was at a tipping point. At that point, it was 4-4 because there was a vacancy still on the court from the passing of Justice Scalia. Now we're in a position where he's done what he said he would do. He's appointed 2 conservatives to the court. Now the court is 5-4 at this point, and we're looking at the potential for it to be 6-3. That is something that an awful lot of people 4 years ago who may not have been a fan of President Trump, they plugged their nose and they voted for him because that's an important issue to an awful lot of us. Because if we look at what goes up to the Supreme Court, it's an awful lot of different things. But one of the things that's chief among them is potentially a court case having to deal with the right to life. And all of us out here certainly have our feelings about it, but those feelings aren't necessarily shared by everybody across the country. And so I think we need to recognize the importance of these elections, and we need to recognize the importance of this upcoming election. Let's think about this, okay? All the accomplishments that were mentioned before. Who else has brokered 2 peace deals in the Middle East? And got no credit for it, by the way. Who else has created the best employment numbers for every demographic, created an economy that works for every American, whether you're a minority or you're female or anything, the best employment numbers in over half a century, and doesn't get any credit for it? It's tragic the way that he's been treated. But we know better. We know better because we're conservatives out here, and we recognize when somebody makes promises and when somebody keeps promises. And Donald Trump has kept his promises. So we have an important job to do. And Craig Riedel touched on it a little bit earlier. We all know Donald Trump is going to win Paulding County. We all know he's going to win Van Wert County and Defiance County and Henry County. He's certainly going to win Putnam County. We all know that. But the duty that we all have is not just making sure he wins, but we need to make sure he wins by a huge margin. We need to make sure that everybody that we can talk to, our friends, family, neighbors, the people who sit next to us at church, we need to make sure they show up and they vote. Because every 10 people you have show up out here in Paulding County, 7 of them are going to vote for President Trump. We need to do that because we need to offset what's going to happen in Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. Let me give a little bit of an example of what happened. All right, in 2018, if you look at the margin by which Mike DeWine won the governor's race, and you look at the margin by which he lost Cuyahoga County in Cleveland, Franklin County in Columbus, and Hamilton County in Cincinnati. If you look just at that and not the rest of the state, any person who follows Ohio's elections would have said Mike DeWine lost in a landslide. You know why he won? It's because people out here showed up. People out here showed up in massive numbers and canceled out those votes because of the fact that the suburbs are now beginning to trend to the left. Our duty in this state, as conservatives here in the northwest corner and along the western side of the state of Ohio, is more important than it ever has been in our state. We need to make sure that we show up on election day, and if we don't, the state is not going to go Republican. Plain and simple. I-75 and west. If you don't show up on election day, it's not going to show up and be Republican. Let's talk a little bit more about 2018. In 2018, even though I-75 and west, for the most part, was very, very deep red if you looked at a map, there were spots of blue when you looked at the Supreme Court race. There were counties across rural western Ohio that voted majority for the Democrats in those Supreme Court races. And the reason about why is because we at many levels, myself, the legislators, the county parties, the state party, everybody had a hand in it. We didn't do our job. We didn't tell our friends and neighbors who the Republicans were. And as a result, 2 Republicans ended up losing their races. We lost a 7-0 majority on the court. It's now 5-2. And if we lose 2 seats this time, we're going to lose those seats, and it's no longer going to be a majority. In a short time span of a little over 2 years, we'll go from a majority to a minority on the court. We must do our job. We must tell all our friends, families, and neighbors, KFC, Kennedy French for the court. We absolutely must do it because it's more important now than it ever has been, and the Justice touched on why. Redistricting. Some of you may remember voting for the redistricting constitutional amendment within the past couple years. The jurisdiction for any challenges to any map that we come up with in the legislature goes directly to them. And if we don't have a Republican court, the Democrats who are upset with any map that a Republican legislature draws are going to walk it right 1 block away from the State House, walk it right into the Supreme Court, and file a case against the state of Ohio saying that we violated the Constitution. I like our odds better to say that we followed the Constitution and that we followed the law with a court there that's made up of conservative justices, as opposed to a court that's made up of activist judges who will use it as a tool to rewrite the map that we just passed. Jennifer Brunner, who's running for the Supreme Court as a Democrat, has pretty much admitted as much. That's why she's running for the Supreme Court, because she wants to be there to vote on the inevitable challenge that's going to come from the left to whatever map we pass. We cannot let that happen, because that map will be in place potentially for the next 10 years. Congressional and state legislative maps. We need to fight through the finish line. We need to do everything we can to make sure people turn out for Election Day. We need to do everything we can to make sure that we, as conservatives, the conscience of the Conservative Party, the conscience of the Republican Party in the state of Ohio, Western Ohio, we need to make sure we do our job. And I hope you all join me in doing that job. Thank you so much. Happy to be with you tonight. Sanitation break.
Thank you so much, Ron. We're going to end with a prayer, and then Shannon's going to come up after the prayer and just tell us who all won the silent auction, okay? Stan.
Again, would you bow your heads with me, please? Heavenly Father, again, we want to thank you for this time that we have had together this evening. And Lord, what a reminder it is to us about our responsibilities our job. Because, Lord, we love freedom. We love our country. We love our state. And we love our community. Heavenly Father, I pray that you would excite us, fan the flames of passion within us, Lord, to get the word out, to support the candidates that we have. And above all, Lord, that we keep them in our prayers for all of our leaders. Lord, we are so thankful that the President has kept his promises. But remind us also, Lord, that you keep your promises from your word. And I guess, Lord, it's not so much that you're on our side, but Lord, are we on your side? Help us to remember that. Also, Lord, tonight, we're reminded that death is no respecter of persons. We ask, Lord, that your hand would be upon the Ginsburg family, Lord. Judge Ginsburg has given so much, Lord, over these years in her position. And Lord, the loss that her family is feeling right now is tremendous. Only you, Lord, through your Spirit, can come and comfort them tonight. So, Lord, help us to be compassionate people. Help us, Lord, to remind the people that we come in contact with that there is great loss in that family. So, Lord, we thank you again for this time tonight. We're coming together like this. And, Lord, speak to us. Give us wisdom and understanding of the choices and decisions that we have to make every day of our lives. All of this we pray in the precious name of Jesus. Amen. You may be seated.